Welcome to another episode of Spiral Theory, understanding the body through the forces of nature. I'm your host, Sheila LaGrue. Let's start discovering.
Welcome to Spiral Theory. So I'm your host, Sheila LaGrue, and this is episode number 2. And we have with us today, Aly Ballow. And today we're going to talk about therapy. How therapy has informed our lens of the world, of the body. This podcast, we're exploring how to see the body in the realm of we are part of this natural world. So that's how we're bringing that into understanding the forces of nature through the body. So we're going to start with talking about Aly's journey. Aly and I met through the Center for Neurosomatic Studies, where we both trained to become structural therapists, a form of structural therapy called Neurosomatic Therapy. So Aly, welcome.
Thank you.
And so Aly, you were first a gymnast. That was your first kind of brush through with being a body person, right? You were really young.
Mm-hmm. I started competitive gymnastics. I was 5 years old.
Yeah, you were really young, competing. Mm-hmm. That's when I quit. And I was like, I'm going to break my neck if I keep doing this. So how long did you go through with your gymnastics training?
I ended up leaving gymnastics when I got to high school.
Okay.
I was there for a long time.
You were really young and you were competing at a young age. So at that level with competition and everything, what kind of insights at that young, little age were you getting on your body? Did you have injuries? Did you maybe not have any injuries? I mean, I know when I was young, that wasn't happening yet. It happened much later, but everyone has a different story. But tell me a little bit about how you started seeing your own body as a young gymnast.
I didn't have very many injuries, actually. You become very flexible. So almost Gumby-like. I did learn, I had a lot of discipline in terms of strengthening. I remember the one thing that I can note is the conditioning that I had to go through. I remember so many weeks of just my entire body feeling like it had been hit by a train. I remember icy hot was a huge part of my recovery. I remember my parents making ice baths for me to lay in.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really young to have to deal with muscle soreness on a regular basis.
And it was my entire body.
Yeah.
So,
no, I hear you.
And then the next day having to go back,
compete,
and do it again.
And
train. It was lots and lots of conditioning.
So aside from the ice baths and warming up and doing it again the next day, did you do anything else on your own as a young person? This was before you had all your massage training. Did you have an instinct to even massage yourself, or?
I don't think so.
It was all ouch, stretch, do it again.
It was more, I would just say a lot of strengthening. I just remember feeling really strong. I was like an 8-year-old with like a rock solid six-pack and like big muscles. And today it actually, I can see where my body actually started to form due to gymnastics.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. So I have very hyperextended knees, which comes from like
the big ending. Ta-da!
And then a flat thoracic, upper thoracic. So with that, it's a lot of like quad dominance.
Yep.
It's a lot of thinking that this is the way that you're supposed to stand. And so my shoulders in turn have kind of like taken a different route to give me that curve.
To counterbalance you. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. That's the number one thing I see in gymnasts is the hyperextension in the low back.
Right.
The tendency
It ends up changing that cervical spine and the lumbar. That's what I've noticed as I've continued to age.
And then, so what got you interested in massage? So it wasn't self-massage at that point that got you interested, was it? So it was, what got you interested? Eventually you ended up, before you were a massage therapist, you ended up working at a massage place, right?
I was the director. But I would say that what first started my journey was being in my 20s somethings and like not really knowing what I was going to do with my life. And I just, on a whim, decided yoga teacher training would be fun. It kind of goes along with gymnastics.
Yeah.
So I was like,
splits.
totally.
Yeah.
Teach people how to do this. So it was kind of like coming back to my like gymnastic roots, but also slowing down and coming into a more spiritual place of it.
Love that.
So that's really, I got trained with yoga teacher training, 300 hours in Orlando through Warrior One Yoga. And that was in 2014. So I was teaching a ton, like all through the pandemic as well.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So I was actively teaching. I also taught a lot of group fitness classes from spinning to TRX.
It's such a natural progression, isn't it? So many dancers and gymnasts end up teaching either yoga, Pilates, a combination, fitness. It's very much a natural progression for us.
Definitely.
So
it makes it fun. And whenever you're doing what you're doing, if you're having fun while you're doing it, why not?
You're letting that passion come through, and that means you're already better at that thing because you have passion behind it.
Exactly.
So you were a director at a massage place, and then at what point were you like, I think I want to I want to be a massage therapist?
Right. So I was directing one of the best massage and private yoga studios in Denver. And when the pandemic hit, I had lost the position that I was working in. So I literally did not, because no one was getting massages during that time.
Gotcha.
So I decided to just kind of, brainstorm things that I would want to do. And I just decided, again, on a whim, it's always just kind of following that, life kind of puts you in a place and you just go for it.
Yep.
So I was living at my mother's house in Tallahassee, just thinking about what I should do. And I decided massage therapy would be fun. As I was looking at schools, there was one in Aveda where they were going to make you do like stuff for the face as well.
Okay.
Facials. And I was like, that's not really in like what I want to do. So I found the Center for Neurosomatic Studies. And I just remember once I talked to Randy, who's one of the owners and creators of this program, I realized that it was going to be really challenging. It was an 18-month program, but I knew that was where I wanted to be.
Yeah. Luckily, I know Randy Clark as well. He's the director of the school and also co-owner of the St. John Clark Pain Treatment Center, which is the therapy center associated with the school. And my first interactions with Randy and Paul St. John is the developer of the work, mind-blowing. I just remember my life got turned upside down when I was like, oh, there are people that are not dancers that are actually this interested in the body. I'm like, let me jump on this train. So go on. So tell me a little more about your time in school and like as your eyes started opening to this world of more the body from the perspective of a massage therapist.
Totally. So it really all started the first session that I got. Obviously, they want you to go get a session. So it's so funny how kind of full circle this is, but Kelly Dobson was actually my first therapist. We both had masks on because it was during the pandemic. And she immediately could look at my body and she was like, were you a gymnast? And I was like, yeah.
Oh, she was one
too.
Yeah. She recognized her kind.
She recognized my kind, but even more, I told her where I was competing in gymnastics and she was like, I used to be a coach there. And we both took our masks off and she was like, I think I was your coach. And I'm like, you were? Yes.
I didn't even know that. That is so cool.
She was my gymnastics coach.
No wonder.
We literally have a picture of us like on a meet. She was putting a flower in my hair.
Cool.
I know. So
I had no idea.
I get like goosebumps whenever I tell that story because it was just such a sign that I was in the right place.
Totally.
Yeah. And I still see Kelly all the time for treatment. So it's really great. So the school really made sense to me. It was very challenging.
Oh, yes.
Yes. You learn very quickly. And Randy did such a great job at helping you because it's neurosomatic. So it's also learning about brain function, that and how it correlates with muscle movement and memory and all of this stuff. So he kept encouraging, even though you're struggling with like remembering muscle names and this and that, to just keep studying, keep practicing. And it really did. He was right. The more you do it, the more you practice, it just starts becoming second nature.
Mm-hmm. And what I love in my journey with neurosomatic therapy as a student is I've gotten tons of body work in the past, but to bring in that neurological aspect where we have to know which spinal segment that nerve root exits and had to learn the pathway of the nerve. So it's so much deeper of a treatment when you have a pain here and you can actually trace it back through the nerve back to the spine.
Yes.
You might not know that one spinal segment has maybe a tilt that might be affecting that nerve, but just that little piece of knowledge, which is huge. It helps the puzzle.
It helps the puzzle.
It helps understand and see the puzzle more. So let's talk about that puzzle a little bit. Like this is what this work is about.
Totally.
Neurosomatic therapy.
Because every single person is a puzzle.
Yes.
That's what we do every day.
Yes. You're so lucky.
It is, but it's the best part about it is, and I've had so many massages. I worked at a massage spa.
Right.
I was hiring massage people and they were great. But I feel like the thing that we do is it's very specific. It really gets to the point. And it's been very amazing. I really just love being able to help people with specific things like that versus just kind of fluffing around it and not really knowing exactly what to do. So it really does help you get to the point.
So take us through, for our listeners that don't really know too much about neurosomatic therapy, like take us through how that's different than, say, a regular massage treatment. So you come in for neurosomatic therapy and what happens?
It's usually a lot of intake at first, especially that first appointment. So understanding where the pain is happening. I usually go through the first main one, second, third, if there is. A lot of understanding what this person does actively, what they do for a job, if it was an injury, how that injury happened. So a lot of intake, a lot of questions. And then a postural assessment is then made. So muscles move bones. So we check out all of those structural imbalances and we document that, which is important. Every session we do this so we can see how changes start to happen. And then, we start the treatment after that.
I love that about this technique, neurosomatic therapy. So Paul St. John created a very simplified charting system that it's complex actually, but it's simple to look at. So it's like a nice schematic. So you have like the human form, and then we're drawing the high tilt, the low tilt, the forward part, the backwards part. So we're charting all that. Then you get a schematic. So instead of notes with words, you have this like quick glance. You can look and see, okay, you were like that last time. Today, that's not there. And then 3 times later, okay, so that came back. Interesting. What did we do that? So it's a great way to kind of keep track.
It is. And it makes it easy to
a quick glance. Yeah.
And while they're on the table, I'm constantly looking at my chart.
And rechecking.
And measuring and seeing, it helps you stay on track.
Yeah. And so they have, I think it's like 84 points, if I'm not mistaken, of bony landmarks that we check. We also were taught gait analysis. So we're already watching functional movement to a degree. I think that degree can even expand much further, and watching someone move with basic movements, you get a lot more of that information. So we have that static posture analysis, and then our treatments are a blend of all these different modalities. But how do you know what to treat based on that chart? So what did they impart to you in the school, in the program? Like, okay, so you have this chart, you see the tilt. How do you know what to do with that tilt?
Well, it was understanding what every muscle does.
Yeah.
What it does. I mean, I remember one of the first things I created was the lat and what all motions the lat does. And so that helped. If I ever saw like the shoulder down and back, I would always know to like kind of get into that, and it's for everything.
Right. And it's all three planes too. That's the thing that got a little more comprehensive with the neurosomatic training, was that it's not just this muscle does this one thing. It's like, what does the muscle do in all three planes? So it started to become a little more 3D, that's one of the hardest things, in my opinion, about learning anatomy, is that we learn 2D on a piece of paper or a screen. It's the 3D that really helps you see the whole picture.
Yep. And that's what coming here and learning spiral theory, where I love to do an Adams test.
Yeah.
That's where I get so excited about the Adams test. And that's seeing the rotational patterns in the spine. And that has really helped me even get more specific in what I'm doing.
And what the charting is. And so what the Adams test is it's the typical test you would see in a school program, where they're looking at, they have these programs where in school you can find out if you have scoliosis at a young age. So it's just a roll down technique where you see where the rotations are in the spine as the person rolls down. So just for those of you who don't know. And that's what we add a couple more elements in our work, which we call spiral theory, that include kind of getting even more of the 360. So it's like you can never have enough, because we learn and we chart on this 2D piece of paper. So how much can we gather to get it as 3D thinking as we can, so we can really dive in that body and help people figure out what's going on.
Right. Well, and you can really see it's the obvious curve. I mean, if the shoulder's like really rounded as they're coming back, immediately to me, I'm like, that is. And what's the first thing we learned at Center for Neurosomatic Studies? What do you see? What's the most obvious thing that you see?
Yes.
So that is a huge thing that I see.
Yes, they call it just look. And I call it zoom out, zoom in. Because we can, as a student of all this alignment assessment, I felt that for a long time I was so zoomed in that I forgot to zoom back out, because that just look gives you that more of the whole picture. So you can say, okay, yeah, that shoulder is high, but then zoom out again and see it's high maybe because of something else. So you start to see cause and effect when you zoom out a little bit more. So did you have any struggles with like zoom in, zoom out, or epiphanies along the way?
I don't know. I really believe that with this work, it was just a lot of the learning was just doing.
Yeah.
Like you just had to get your hands. Because what I would see, I'd have plenty of clients who would have similar issues, but their structure looked so different and had different, you know what I mean? So
absolutely.
So the one thing that I did for this one person's nerve issue, it wasn't the same thing for this other person.
A high shoulder isn't a high shoulder on every.
Totally.
Why is it there, and where did it come from, and what's
Yep. So understanding the hips in relation to the shoulder. I mean, I just worked on a client today who has a foot thing, and the biggest thing I saw was something going on in her shoulders, and I had to like touch that in order to get this to change in the hips, which I feel like was following through with the foot. So it was really so much.
I think it's Ida Rolf, who Paul St. John quotes a lot. And the little quote that he says is, where you think it is, it ain't. And it holds so true. That's how the fascia works in the body. So oftentimes when we feel a pain, it's not the cause, the place where the cause is happening. So that's where the symptom is happening. Right. And the way I put it is sometimes it's like where the pain is because something else is pulling that out of place. So it's not always that place. So that was mind-blowing for me as a therapist, to continue to work not where the pain is. Of course, touch it, like see what it needs. It needs to be listened to, need to be heard, but to see the whole, that zoom out, see the whole picture. Maybe that foot had to do with the high shoulder, and even though it's so far apart in the body, it's
so relative.
We're all one continuous piece of fabric. So
when I still get regular massages all the time because I love it. But now that I understand spiral theory, interesting to me. I go into it with like curious eyes for my own body because I can feel spiral theory.
Yes.
I can feel how the posterior adductors do not feel the same on both sides.
Yes.
I can feel it. And I just literally 2 days ago got a full body deep tissue massage. I stood up and started walking away, and I was opening and closing my jaw, and it was popping and pulling because they didn't get into anything in here. So I was like, how interesting.
Yeah.
It finally chilled out, but I was like, this is so crazy. It's so relative.
So relative.
Yeah.
And one other beautiful piece about the neurosomatic work is that we do get into areas of the body that not typical massage doesn't get into so much. So we mobilize the top 2 vertebrae in your neck, C1 and C2, making sure they're able to mobilize in both directions and hopefully land in a more neutral place with our treatment. How much the TMJ muscles, so all the muscles of mastication that we chew with, and even all the cranial, blink with, all the stuff. Maybe you hear better out of one ear. All of these things are informing that C1, which are then informing the rest of your body. Not only that, the organ work. I always say it's like our atlas axis and cranial work. So C1, C2, and the cranial work, along with the organ work, is kind of what sets us apart from typical massage. So we're not like, our medium isn't just muscles, muscles, tendons, soft tissue. It's getting into these neurological structures and getting into these super reflexogenic structures like our organs that really are shaping us in more ways than we can probably even know.
Right.
So that to me was what was setting this work apart, massage apart from neurosomatic therapy. And then I was curious to know, like, as you started, before we met and you're measuring and charting people in our school, we have in our student clinic program, once a week, we had 3 clients, real paying clients a week that we got to chart. And then we had homework. So we had 5 charts we had to do a week, plus anything else we're doing on the side. And then once you start working, you know, you're seeing a lot of bodies. You're seeing a lot of variation.
You are.
Was there like aha moments in patterns? This is the beginning of like seeing patterns. Did it start coming up back then for you?
You know, I would say due to the amount of testing and like having to learn stuff in like very in-depth testing, I wasn't necessarily seeing patterns so much because I was always trying to like, I just learned about the arms. So now I really want to like,
you were zoomed in.
I was zoomed in, super zoomed in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So then zooming out, and you mentioned spiral theory, and that's the name of our podcast, but I haven't gone into too deeply into what spiral theory is quite yet. But we just know we're part of nature here. Like we're part of the natural world. Our bodies are following suit with patterns as well. But I started seeing patterns as a neurosomatic therapist that started the development for me of spiral theory. So I remember I had a client that she had a pelvic obliquity. So one pelvic half was folding in and the other pelvic half was folding out. And that movement is at the SI joints, the sacroiliac joints. So from there, she had this actual pretty extreme tibial torsion. And I remember I said out loud, this has to go out. This has to go in. This has to go. Wait a minute. We're alternating ins and outs here. Oh my goodness. I'm starting to see a pattern. And then it started to formulate in my mind, like, I'm not just drawing charts and everyone is just vastly different. We're different, but we're following a pattern of counterbalance in the body. We have to stand up.
Which is efficiency.
Yeah.
It's an efficient thing. It's your brain literally trying to help you walk straight.
Thank you. Thank you, body.
Yes.
Thank you, body, for compensating and adapting because otherwise I'd fall over or walk in a circle.
Go back into fetal pose.
So fast forward a little bit. So tell me when these like patterns started appearing to you.
You know, what's really interesting, I would say my aha moment was treating my first scoliosis patient.
Aha.
Yeah. The second, it really made sense then. And that was I remember when you taught this to me and you just said, just like have fun with it. Don't just follow what I say. Feel both sides and like talk
palpate.
To.
Yeah.
So that's what I was doing. And with the scoliosis patient, it was very like, I was touching both sides and she was like, I don't feel that at all. And then I'd go to the other side and work that muscle. And she's like,
lights up.
Yep. So that's when it really hit me.
Me too. I have to say. So, back to Center for Neurosomatic Studies. I actually graduated the program and worked at the St. John Clark Pain Treatment Center. Besides Randy and Paul, alongside them, and I felt very privileged because they're brilliant in opening the door, opening our minds to this way of thinking, just looking at patterns and just they started everything. And then I remember Randy. I had a scoliosis patient. And so did he. And we were having a conversation about it. And he pulled out the Schroth Method book, this big yellow book it's an old book. I think it's over 100 years old and it's been translated from German. So it's actually a difficult read. And he pulls it out and he said, learn this. And I said, okay. And I did. And I started studying that Schroth Method book. Like, I have to figure this out. I didn't even understand half of it because of the translation. It's actually pretty complicated the way they describe things. I think it's the translation. But anyways, so I started studying it and practicing on my scoliosis patients. And that was when things started turning for me, was starting to see the spiral in the body. That was one of the big turning points. And then I had another one years later with the OOV creator, Daniel Vladeta, which I'll get into in a whole other podcast. But that was my aha moment. And it was learning on the scoliosis patients that really started opening my eyes, because then I realized when you're not diagnosed with scoliosis, you're still subject to these forces.
Yep. And now I see, So I literally think that we all sort of have scoliotic patterns. I see it in everyone.
Agreed.
Which means, in turn, if you're working on someone who does have extreme scoliosis, the parts that they don't feel anything are weak.
Yeah.
And so you need the strengthening aspect of it.
Yeah.
And so these things are really important in terms of, I don't want to treat the same muscle on both sides.
Right.
I want them to learn how to activate this part of their muscle.
And that's definitely a challenge. That's not easy when you have scoliosis, because there's a neurological disconnect.
Right.
It's like a sleep. I don't know how to activate it.
Proprioception.
There's a lack of proprioception there. And we get into that a lot here at Body Center, where we both work. We get into that a lot with our patients and clients. But that scoliotic way of viewing the body, when I started working on my clients, again, without them having the scoliosis diagnosis, without them having extreme curves, I started little by little seeing these curves in everyone. And then a lot of it came from, I think the universe was talking to me. I started seeing the spirals all over nature. That's when I started, I was kind of, my mind was being blown for a while. I was like, wait a minute. It's everywhere.
Right.
From shells to like the tornadoes and the hurricanes on our, when we're freaking out, they're barreling towards us and we're watching that destructive force.
I was just cutting a beet and looking at the beet this morning. Like, oh, look at that. It's in trees. Like, it's everywhere.
It is everywhere.
Everywhere.
And so when you just consider we're just a part, we are as human and in our human form, part of these just natural patterns all over the place. It kind of demystifies the body for me, rather than like we contain this spirit and who we are and this personality. We're just another pattern out there in nature that was that the creator, has so many variations of.
Well, and what's really nice, what I've really enjoyed educating my clients on, because a lot of times they come in and they're very pain, I mean, to be in pain, it doesn't feel good. It can really drag you down. It can really get to you mentally. It can mess with your sleep. It can mess with your vagus nerve, the organs, everything. And so when we educate them on this, what it is that we're understanding about the body, when you can come from a place of recognizing that your body's just trying to survive, it's just trying to help you see straight. Like there's a reason it's doing it. And it's actually to help you be more efficient and walk more efficient. You learn to come from a more loving place.
That is so important to me. As a gymnast, I'm sure you went through this a little bit. Maybe you said you didn't get injured too much, but in my dance career, when I got injured, I immediately was loving on that place. Immediately, like caring for it like a baby. Like, I love you. Thank you for holding me up. I'm sorry I did this to you. Let's start to heal like fast, right? And I truly believe that got me through injuries much more quickly than screw you, knee. How dare you give out on me? You know, like those words matter. And this stuff is actually science. If you look at Bruce Lipton's work, I don't know if you're familiar with Bruce Lipton. It's the study of epigenetics and how our environment shapes gene expression. So his work is like your environment includes your thoughts. Thoughts are energy.
Yep.
Like if you're hating on your body and expecting it to heal, to hold you up.
Right. Totally.
It might not be the first thing in order for that body part because you're hating on it.
Right.
But if you're loving on that body and thanking it, it's going to be in more harmony with you even through injuries. I believe that. I feel like it can speed the process up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's really the biology of belief. Sorry, biology of belief is the Bruce Lipton work that it just blows my mind if you look into that. It's epigenetics. But go ahead.
It's just important. It's really important to make sure you get into that mind state to recognize that your body's just trying to help you.
Yeah, let's not be mad at it.
Right, don't be mad.
It's carrying you around.
It is.
Like, thank it.
100%.
100%. So when you started doing more and more of what we're calling spiral theory, so this is like we're taking everything we learned from neurosomatic therapy and how would you describe what we're doing? We're taking what we learned from neurosomatic therapy and we're looking at it through a lens that's slightly, I find it more rounded and a little more three-dimensional. It's still the same stuff.
It's still the same, yeah. It's still the same thing, but I mean, I don't know. That's a great question. It's hard. I think like before, if I measured someone and they had high hip flexion, immediately in my head and the way I was taught was, okay, quads, okay, psoas, okay, TFL. That's immediately where QL, things like that. But now I want to know more. I'm like measuring things to get a little bit more information so I can like X certain stuff out. So I can just get more specific. So do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm not doing guesswork and I'm not trying both sides. I'm not doing both sides. I feel like I've really pinpointed it based on what I'm seeing their lumbar doing and the hip relation and what their knees doing. Like it's a lot of that.
Like it ties in more body parts. Yes. It like brings it's the zoom out. It literally is the zoom out.
It's the zoom out.
Because I really was stuck in the zoom in for so long. Got really good at releasing tissue. I got really good at palpating and knowing exactly where that attachment was, but still not seeing things hold in treatment. They're still coming back with the same stuff.
Right.
So then when I'm thinking, let me zoom out. Let me zoom out and let's take your hip flexion as an example. So you have a large anterior pelvic tilt. And then Aly was saying in the past, she was thinking it's a hip flexor or a back extensor. Same. I'm thinking, okay, if the pelvis is going there, what's the diaphragm doing? Because we know the pelvic floor muscles and the diaphragm work in conjunction. They go up and down together with respiration. Right. So what does that mean to the diaphragm? What does that mean to the shoulder? What does that mean to the neck? Really what is that? Okay. My old way of thinking is a little more like this is off in your measurements, and these 5 things could be why you're off. But then when with kind of a broader scope and seeing kind of zoomed out lens and with spiral theory in mind, I can see the relationships. Okay, that's happening. And look at what's happening there, and like literally everywhere else.
It's all right. Yeah.
And if you can kind of touch on those relationships, then you're taking something that's off grid and you're bringing it back, not just in one place, the most obvious place, but the little kind of not as obvious places are going to support that. And then I'm finding people are holding their treatments.
They are.
Really holding their treatments better.
We're really unwinding them.
Literally
unwinding them.
them.
Because you can't just, and it's happened to me before. I've had a neurosomatic therapy treatment where just 2 spots got treated and it felt fine. But 2 days later, I was going right back into my pattern.
So there's something that was missed.
Something else, So that's where, and that's, I think, where my sessions have changed a lot is I am treating more like full body, kind of checking a bunch of different little things that I think could be holding that one little spot right there.
Right. And it's definitely a gift. I know Randy has that gift of getting as much intake as he can and finding the key place that is handling all these problems.
Absolutely.
And that's one way, that's one awesome approach. And we're all different people here. And that approach was hard for me because I knew that's being held by that and that's being held by that. And you can deduce all these other areas that are supporting this one problem.
Right.
So it's really, for me, it's like, I want to make sure the allies of this problem are not going to come back and pull the problem back into existence.
Right. And that's why the intake part is really important. I know that's one of the biggest things when I'm having issues with my body. The first thing, what were you doing?
Yeah.
What were you doing? And then we literally get ourselves into the position of what I was doing. And then it's like, oh, these muscles and this and that. And it's really interesting. It's important.
What is your favorite thing to treat? What is your favorite like condition or body part or problem or?
It changes. I would say right now I'm really into treating the neck and cranium. I'm kind of
You've been into the neck for a long time. You're the neck girl.
I have been and it's a personal thing for me though, because then that's one of the things that I love about getting treated by Kelly is that even if I'm complaining about something that's happening in my body, every time she measures me, it's always like the forward head, the neck thing, and she goes in and touches stuff. And I feel like everything kind of releases. Like it's sort of a button, even if it's
pretty
not,
important spot though, like neurologically, right? So our brain stem's there. It's informing the tonicity of our entire body. So
100%.
it's a big operating place right there. That's why there are chiropractors, the upper cervical chiropractors that only work on C1 and C2.
Right.
You know, it's an important spot for sure.
Is. So that's what I'm into right now. And what's funny though is Randy even said this, that usually when you start seeing a problem in someone, you start getting a lot of people with the same problem. So a few months ago, it was shoulder issues. So I got really good with the shoulder and the spiral of
through
the
arm,
through the hand, everything.
I always say the hand is like a parsed out version of the actual scapula, and same with the feet.
Yes.
You know, if you take your pinky and rotate it under, that inferior angle is rotating, and same with the thumb. It's immediately connected.
Absolutely.
And that was prevalent in all of our movement practices back when we were training, like your hand position on the bar, right? Like, I don't know if you talked about it much, but like if you're grabbing the bar kind of wonky, it's going to go all the way up into your shoulder. So we're a big chain, you know, we're just a big chain.
Are. And it really follows through.
It follows through.
And the same thing with the feet. I see it all the time.
Yeah. Feet were a can of worms for me. I literally did not want to deal with feet because it was a can of worms for the longest time. And then when I was ready,
you're like,
okay, I have the headspace. Let's dive into this can of worms. It was like, oh my gosh, this was actually a missing piece for me.
Right. You were like, you have to do the feet every time.
Yes.
And that's how you get so excited about it. You'll come in and you're like, the feet, check the feet. You gotta check the whole body.
For so long, I didn't do the feet at all. I was like, I'll just let her husband massage her feet.
Right.
Like, I'm going going to go everywhere else. But yeah, no, it is a can of worms, and it's super, super important.
So important.
We have major areas where we have a lot of proprioception, and that's one of them. So we definitely want to make changes that are going to last. So we go to these important proprioceptive areas for that reason.
Right.
So if someone comes to see you, they're going to get some neck treatment. They're going to get some whole kind of zoomed out work, looking at the whole body. What else do you offer?
I mean, really just excitement towards learning about your body.
I hear that when you're saying goodbye to your client, you don't even stop. You're like, oh yeah, and I see you're
this
better.
And this and yeah,
I love that excitement.
I want to educate. I want people to continue to not be scared to go and work out, but to like know maybe a subtle change that they can do to like not pull something back into its alignment, but also knowing that when it shows back up again, just come and see us. Like you're using your body. Just know, like, I know that I'm going to need neurosomatic therapy treatment for a long time because I'm using my body. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And even when you're not, those sedentary bodies also need it.
Exactly. So it's just the type of work. I believe Randy said it best, that we all need a physician, a dentist, and a neurosomatic therapist.
100%. And we have to give big kudos to Paul St. John for bringing all of these different modalities into one attainable modality. He pulled from a lot of inspiration to develop neurosomatic therapy, and Randy Clark, and at the time Kevin Wade, and even Tracy Jones, the development of neurosomatic therapy here in Clearwater, Florida. I didn't know this was going to be my second career. I didn't know what I was going to do after dance.
Right.
I can't be happier that I fell into this. It feels creative. I'm helping people. I'm challenging my mind. That excitement I have with every client as well too. They're
we're like
cheerleaders
here.
I mean, we're having a blast, and we'd love for you to join us if you have any pain related issues or not. Maybe you're just interested in knowing more about your posture, maybe I want my gait to be better, or I want to be more comfortable sitting all day at the desk. Like, what are some tips? So we're here. We have a lot of tools.
We do.
We use neurosomatic therapy. We use stretching and strengthening modalities. I get deep into the OOV stuff, which I'm going to do a whole podcast on coming up soon.
We're always doing continued education. We have like our foot workshop that we're doing this weekend.
Tomorrow. Yes. We do dissections.
We're constantly learning.
We're a fun group, and I couldn't be happier that I fell into this.
I know.
It's
the
profession.
Greatest. I say to everyone, I want to work forever.
Pinch me. Is this real?
Is this real?
I love it.
Yeah. I feel like I'm so excited to come into work. You don't work a day in your life when you do what you love.
Love that.
Yep.
So with that, I think we'll say goodbye. And I want to thank Aly so much for talking with us today, and all the beautiful work you do here at Body Center and around. You have other places you work. Do you want to mention?
Sure. I work at Shiva's Massage as well, and that's in Dunedin, Florida. So
maybe one day in Colorado again.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. My goal would be to open up my own body center one day. I really just want to keep branching this out and spread this awareness and education and love of the body somewhere else.
I love that. That's our goal. We're spreading it because you can be happier in your body.
You can.
With that, we'll say goodbye.
Goodbye.